For the past couple of months, I've been playing 2 Warhammer 40,000 games. The plan was to make a series of game reviews for this channel, but then I thought, why waste time on separate videos when I can flame both games at once for being equally terrible. The games I'm talking about are Warhammer Dark Tide and Warhammer Rogue Trader. Playing these games, experiencing their stories, bits of dialogue, made me realize that Warhammer 40k is going through a crisis of creativity. To be specific, 40k is losing its defining theme, that is the grim darkness. Now, I'm not saying 40k isn't grim dark anymore. The lore still tries to present itself as such, but I'm saying that the stories around this universe are no longer grim dark. Like, not even close, which is ironic considering the genre grim dark originated from Warhammer 40k itself. It's no secret Games Workshop has been trying to push 40k into mainstream media stardom. They really want to build another mega sci-fi franchise such as Star Wars, Star Trek or Dune, and it's this effort that's causing them to tone down the grim darkness of the setting to make themselves more inclusive and marketable. For a long while now, Games Workshop has gradually become another company that not only hates its audience, but also its product, which is pretty unique. I don't think there's any other company that operates this way. 40k is too dystopian, too immoral. The political philosophy of the setting, in line with the grimdark theme, is incredibly far-right, to the point civilization across the galaxy is ruled by a feudal autocratic system where the emperor sits at the top as the ultimate ruler, and the masses are taught, usually at gunpoint, from infancy to adore him and worship him no matter what. Needless to say, leftists obsessed with identity politics can't help themselves but decry this setting as actual far-right political propaganda. And then there's the other half of the Western world that gets outraged by anything or anyone who doesn't follow their principles of morality. Because, only the West has a say on what is morally acceptable. You see, there's this problem with Western audiences where they have this weird point of view in life where they see graphic violence in entertainment and it's completely fine. No one cares. But then suffering is unacceptable. People blown to pieces, dismembered or executed in cold blood, that's alright. But God forbid if you show them how anyone feels. No, that's too far. Naturally, this comes in direct conflict with the essence of what grim darkness is, neutering the genre. Without human suffering, grim darkness is just graphic violence for the sake of it. It's all cheap and stupid, but that's exactly what the modern audience wants. The modern audience just wants something cool and exciting, not intriguing or thought-provoking. But why is that? Why do Westerners think this way? They're stupid. They're all in their own safety bubbles, hooked on antidepressants and nihilism, while at the same time they try to hypocritically convince themselves that it's all worth it in the end somehow. The average Westerner's view on life is more grim dark than fucking modern day Warhammer. That's how low we've fallen. To give you an idea of what the current state of Warhammer 40k is, I've made this graph to illustrate the life cycle of the average 40k fan. You see that poor sucker at the bottom of the shit chain? That's you. That's you if you don't understand what made 40k popular in the first place. That's you if you go along with Games Workshop's delusions. That's you if you keep getting excited about the kind of shit they put on your plate without doing any critical thinking. Let's not forget how in the past couple of years, Games Workshop has started to prioritize a DEI-friendly business model. Curiously, around the same time that they began taking money from certain investment companies such as BlackRock, Vanguard, and such. But I'm just gonna leave this piece of information there. This subject isn't the point of this video. Anyway, the point is, all the new Warhammer 40k games and media coming out in recent times are far from what they used to be. It was pretty clear when I was playing Rogue Trader, and the whole story felt more like a D&D adventure rather than anything related to Warhammer. It's like every fucking Western RPG coming out these days is just trying to be Baldur's Gate 3, even when the setting, in this case Warhammer 40,000, couldn't be any further from the kind of principles modern day Dungeons and Dragons is trying to normalize. Spend a few minutes playing Rogue Trader or Dark Tide, and you'll start noticing certain things out of place for stories supposedly taking place in the grim darkness of the far future. Like, why the hell are there so many African women in these games? They all sound goofy as hell. They sound like they don't understand the setting, or as if the script was handed over to them 5 minutes before recording their lines. Every time I hear them talk, I just start laughing. What's worse, none of them know how to act. It's either overdramatic,
Emperor, accept thy faithful souls.
Lord Captain, who would even dare? Unless that rat, Voidsphere.
No! Lord Captain, I didn't hear a thing. Not a whisper, not a breath. It was so loud. Why didn't I foresee this?
or they sound like deers standing in the middle of the road staring at the headlights.
What do you want? I didn't call for crew support. Unless you know how to read, read, or talk civil. You know, I've seen so many of you come and go, I can hardly keep track.
That's what you get when you hire Netflix actors. It's strange how women are portrayed in modern Warhammer games. They're either faceless enemies clad in armor with no distinguishable feminine features, or caricatures of how a badass character is supposed to act. They've got no character development either, or barely any at best. Most women in these stories begin the hero's journey one way and finish it in the exact same manner. It's like the writers are so concerned with making sure their women are empowered that they forget women are people too. They fart, they shit, they lie like anybody else. They are capable of doing a lot of good too in their own unique ways. But the writers don't have the balls to explore these venues because these women are there to fulfill a specific quota, so they are never characterized. They are idealized for no good reason. Not doing so would be accepting that men and women are fundamentally different, which goes against the modern day leftist ideology. So in the end, all of these black women end up becoming part of the most ridiculous and boring aspects of the stories they appear in. Games Workshop and all of these game developers working on Warhammer seem to have forgotten who their main customers are: men. Specifically men above 30 and white. Realistically, who the fuck else do you think is buying the minis or official content, or subscribing to Warhammer Plus, or buying all the Warhammer games on day one? Just search for any 40k tournaments on YouTube. Doesn't matter where or when. I dare you to find one woman playing this shit, or go on hard mode and find one black woman in there. You fucking can't. This is a male-oriented hobby. Fucking treat it as such. All the customers, all the whales are men, and the large majority of them are white. That's just the way it is. It's really weird how they try to shove in diversity and inclusion in spaces where there was never any diversity. And not because women weren't allowed. Women just don't give a shit about male-oriented hobbies, so leave our stuff be. Giving in to the outrage mob is giving in to tourists who couldn't give less than half a shit if Warhammer goes down in flames. As a matter of fact, that is probably exactly what they want. They want to change the franchise to their liking, or destroy it completely if they don't get their way. So just let them throw their tantrum in a corner until they get tired and go find something else to infest with their tribal mainstream ideology. This is all tokenism and propaganda, by the way. It's intellectually insulting. It's plain to see, but say this shit out loud and everybody loses their minds. But anyway, enough of that. Out of Darktide and Rogue Trader, it's clear which one adapts the Warhammer atmosphere best, despite having the exact same diversity nonsense. Of course, it's Darktide, but it's easier when this game doesn't have an actual story. On the occasion that you hear or see any diversity crap, it's usually brief. On the other hand, Rogue Trader has 200 hours worth of story content where that shit is almost constant. Rogue Trader portrays the lore pretty accurately, with all its cruelty and despair, only to throw it all away by including characters that simply don't fit in this universe. Genuinely, these characters are written like shit. They belong in a Larian Studios game or a Disney script, far away from anything 40k related.
Rough day?
You have no idea.
I just might. That's the second bottle you've downed.
Jai Hidari. Falco sends his regards.
And what does that unholy scion of a Grox and a Brahan want from me this time? Oh, wait, I don't really care. My sole plans for tonight are drowning my grief in a sea of Amasak.
We'll give you grief, all right. Get out!
Don't think so, Ashma. And tell Falco to come himself next time.
Hidari, I am tired of your mess. Out! Get some sleep. We'll talk about settling up later.
Okti Shireen, light of my eyes. Can't you see my soul is full of sadness? Have you no heart at all? Let go of your material concerns and let me grieve in peace. Have we met somewhere before? Greetings, Shireen. With whom do I have the honor of speaking?
Both the people making these stories and the audiences blindly consuming this content don't have a fucking clue what grimdark means. If it was just about violence and monsters, almost every story out there could be classified as grimdark. What we have instead are different genres, such as dark fantasy, to categorize the level of intensity of the main themes. What makes grimdark what it is the morality in the hopelessness of it all that results in a unique kind of philosophy. In a grimdark universe, every step you make on your own could most likely be your last. What only matters is what actually works. Complete authoritarianism to prevent the corruption of the human spirit. The Imperium of Man in 40k isn't fascistic out of personal choice. They gotta be this way for the sake of survival. This isn't a reflection of the Imperium's choices, it's more of a reflection of the 40k universe itself, where you need to be an extreme ruler just so your species can survive. These games simply don't get it. You're given morally good choices in Rogue Trader that never really result in bad outcomes. You wanna feed the poor? You can. You wanna save refugees from a planet that's fallen to chaos? Sure, go ahead. It's not like chaos corruption is the singular biggest threat to the Imperium. By all means, being a morally good character in this universe should result in the player getting fucked over time and time again, but you never experience any real consequences for your actions. Compare this to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, where the very first lesson you learn the first time you arrive on a planet is how doing the right thing doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna get a good outcome. In some cases, the player's good intentions lead to more evil in the world.
I saw what you did to those exchange thugs, stranger. Can you spare a few credits, maybe help another refugee in need? Thank you, stranger. I won't forget your kindness.
Why did you do such a thing? Such kindnesses will mean nothing. His path is set. Giving him what he has not earned is like pouring sand into his hands. And would that be a kindness? What if by surviving another day he brings a greater darkness upon another? force binds all things. The slightest push, the smallest touch, sends echoes throughout life. Even an act of kindness may have more severe repercussions than you know or can see. By giving him something he has not earned, perhaps all you have helped him become is a target. Seeing another elevated often brings the eyes of others who suffer. And perhaps in the end, all you have wrought is more pain. And that is my lesson to you. Be careful of charity and kindness, lest you do more harm with open hands than with a clenched fist. Good. Mind what I have said. Use your power, but in its proper place.
A Star Wars RPG from 20 years ago surpasses a Warhammer RPG in moral philosophy. This isn't even funny anymore. The Warhammer fanbase is also one of the worst I've ever seen, and I've seen quite a few. These guys are so infatuated with the IP, they're willing to go along with whatever Games Workshop says. Female Space Marines? Sure, why not? Female Custodes? There's always been female Custodes. If Games Workshop told these guys to bend over and take it, they wouldn't even need to be told twice. You can see it reflected on content creators too. Warhammer Tube is fucking insufferable. It's full of man-children digesting the lore for tourists in a way that takes away the impact of the stylistic choices from the setting, talking about it as if it was all some quirky shit.
What's poppin'? Don't mind me just...
What the fuck, bro? What the fuck are you doing? And they're all doing this kind of shit too, by the way. You really can't run away from it. This has created a new culture around the hobby that's focused on appealing to these baddie boys instead of taking the 40k universe to the next level. And trust me, it's possible. We've been there before.
Friend Apocalypsis, tell me, what did you mean when you said this place was soon to be gone?
Exactly what I said. Even in your isolated state, you must have heard of the Emperor and his crusade to stamp out religion and belief in the supernatural. Soon, he and his forces will arrive to tear this place down.
I know, but it makes no difference to me. I believe what I believe, and no amount of hectoring from some warmongering despot will sway me.
That is an obstinate point of view.
It is faith. It would seem I'm not as fickle as you would posit, eh?
Faith. A willing belief in the unbelievable without proof.
Faith's strength is just that. It requires no proof. Belief is enough.
That is why the Emperor wants rid of it, then. You call faith powerful. I call it dangerous. Think of what people in the grip of faith have done in the past. All the atrocities down the centuries that can be traced back to faith. Faith is both the causation and the justification for so much evil.
Just like in the Imperium, 40k's golden years are now far behind. The art of Warhammer reflects this point clearly. Here we have the cover from that 40k boomer shooter game, Boltgun. Yeah, sure, it looks pretty cool at first glance, but the more you look at it, the more boring it gets. The Space Marine's armor looks too clean for the kind of scenario he's in. The helmet looks too polished, to the point it looks like plastic. It all seems like a homage to the original Doom cover, but it feels like the characters are posing for a picture, as if it was a Photoshop cosplay. There's a lot of things going on, yet none of it draws my attention. Now, let's grab a similar artwork from a Space Marine, but from the old days. Instantly, there's way more personality. The Space Marine has no helmet on. Why? No idea. But we can see his face. He's in pain, he's struggling. One of his arms is cut off. leaving behind a cauterized stump with cables hanging out of it. His armor is all fucked up too. It's dirty, scratched all over, dented. Then there's the environment, way simpler than the previous example, but full of intriguing details. There's a hand down there on the bottom right, some wreckage on the left. Did the Space Marine crash on this planet? Was his spacecraft shot down perhaps? The whole thing oozes personality. I can show you many other examples, but they all have the same thing in common. The art used to feel alive, like it was trying to tell a story. I look at all 40k art from different artists and I want to know more about the characters they're drawing. Who are they? Where are they? How did they get to that point? What have they been through? They look rough, they look dirty, full of scars. What motivates them to keep on going? What do they believe in? Then there's the new art. It all looks high quality, obviously drawn on a computer instead of paper. The characters look like actors hired to pose for a picture. There's no dirt, there's no scars that tell me what kind of life they've had. They all wear the same expressions on their faces. It's all there just to look cool, but serves no real purpose. The pinnacle of this new modern art is one of the available portraits in Rogue Trader's character creator. There's this Shaniqua in space portrait that fucks me up the more I look at it. She's standing on a rock somewhere. I think there's an exploding ship in the background. There's cinders in the air around her. Some bullets and a missile shooting at what could be flying demons or perhaps Xenos. I have no idea. But the cherry on top is seeing this fat middle-aged black woman in this scenario with no expression or reaction to anything that's going on. As if someone said, "Hey yo, hold up, I'm gonna take a picture." Remove those scars and this could be a driving license photo. It's a perfect representation of what kind of state the hobby is in, where artists and creators are more concerned with appealing to non-existent fans than the actual people buying the products. Rogue Trader is a long-ass CRPG game. Do you think there's any fat middle-aged black ladies playing this? Who the fuck is this for? Nobody with a passion for the hobby or a stable state of mind will pick this as their character in a 200-hour Warhammer 40k adventure. Turn back the clock 20 years and you never see Games Workshop promoting this kind of material. This only tells me the art had a standard, because 40k and Games Workshop used to have a standard. They knew what kind of product they had on their hands, they knew what they wanted from it, and they knew who they were selling it to. We're talking about a company that was so protective of the IP, they refused to give it to Blizzard in the 90s, which led Blizzard to create their own IP, that is Warcraft, while Games Workshop missed out on what could have been a defining early adaptation of Warhammer. Needless to say, Warhammer 40k is now a far-fetched from the legendary franchise that gave origin to a new genre of science fiction. If you love the IP, my best advice to you is to start coming to terms with the realization that it's over. Your favorite hobby has been kidnapped and transformed into something else, an abomination, something hideous, which is ironic considering all the horrors that exist in the 40k universe. Me, I'm ready to exit the boat. By the time Games Workshop gains the approval of the woke mob, the hobby will most likely be dead or in its deathbed. The die-hard fans will go down with it for sure. They will keep funding this shit forever, through thick and thin. They are like boiling frogs, not realizing how they are slowly being cooked alive. Eventually there will be something else. The competition will come to Games Workshop's front door, whether they like it or not. Right now we have Trench Crusade, AT-43, maybe Warpath, and although I recognize nothing comes close to the same style of 40k and the themes it created and explored, that doesn't mean there won't be anything else in the future. Shit, I'm an aspiring writer myself. I'm down for writing the lore of a dystopian sci-fi universe. So be smart, save yourself the slow disappointment that's coming over the next few years, and quit now that's still early. And that's all I gotta say. Thanks for listening, bye.